Sir, you can unmute, sir. Dr. Basuraj, sir, you can unmute, sir. Basuraj, sir, please unmute, sir. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, audible. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, sorry for that, actually. Okay. Good evening, all. So it's indeed a pleasure and honor to share a few thoughts about integration of AI at the grassroots research practices. Um, I thought, so let me use a practical example of Graham's own study. So which we did 3 to 4 years ago in the absence of AI. It was not an AI era. So I'll be trying to explain or probably draw a parallel analogy like how probably we would have done or we could do using AI for more efficiently or probably more timely fashion. And for all the audience joined from different parts of the country, the world, Namaskara. I'm Dr. Basavaraj Shrestha. In the development sector, we often suffer from what I call as illusion of the dashboard. The policy intent normally will be noble, so it's good. The administrative dashboard also glows green, shows rosy figures, but the ground reality tells a different story. Often we go to field and do an evaluation or research, it'll give us a different story. As I said, let me take back to a study that Graham conducted in around 2022. It was on Forest Rights Act in the district, one of the districts of Karnataka. If you looked at the administrative data, the district was a star performer, claiming 93 point some percentage success in individual forest rights and 100% in community forest rights. For some of you who are probably new to this Forest Rights Act, which says the native citizens, the people who were in the forest have got absolute right to live and continue to live in the forest. So according to this new act. So this provides that according to this act, both the forest department and the committee headed by the DC, district commissioner, required to give this entitlements for the native tribes in that particular region. So that's called forest rights. So to both community rights as well as individual rights. So our objective was to go and study whether how far this forest rights have enabled them in terms of acquiring or prospering with respect to their livelihood and life. But when we physically verified, so we literally went to around 180, 1800 families across 20 tribal hamlets, we found 17% exclusion error. What I mean, those who were supposed to get according to the criteria set by the government, they were actually excluded. Furthermore, at the block level, when we evaluated, 91% of the community forest rates, I'm not talking about individual forest rates, community forest rates, they were actually rejected. Why? Because of a policy paradox. Claims were being denied because they fell under the critical tiger habitat of the Wildlife Protection Act. The dashboard did not show, when we looked at the administrative data, the dashboard did not show this conflict. It just showed a wonderful sanitized data. This is where the gap exists, and this is exactly where AI can intervene. Public policies, not only in India, globally, is often designed with a pristine or a noble intent at the macro level. But at the implementation level, we face a friction between various stakeholders at the grassroots. Traditional monitoring and evaluation systems are often, it's more of retrospective, slow, and also sometimes constrained by sample sizes, missing the nuanced realities of rural implementation, etc. In fact, we are assessing, or sometimes I feel 21st century complexities using 20th century tools. I think the digital divide, language barriers, and the data latency further widens this particular graph. So, where have I seen AI can make a real difference at the grassroots? It is not in replacing our field workers, it is in synthesizing the messy, unstructured reality of the field. Again, go back to our own example, the FRS study, our researchers conducted dozens of focus group discussions and innumerable in-depth interviews with tribal populations, with officers on the field, with various other stakeholders to discover the why question, like why claims were rejected, and traditionally transcribing and coding this qualitative data, because why questions normally cannot be answered by quantitative data. We need to administer the qualitative research methodologies, and this requires a lot of coding, transcriptions, etc. We know how difficult it was to go through capturing in the local dialect, then translating into Kannada, then translating into English for various reporting purposes. Today, the natural language processing (NLP) can analyze hundreds of pages of field notes and instantly flag anomalies also, like the recurring conflict between the Forest Rights Act and the Wildlife Protection Act in this case, and why people are not able to get their entitlements. Probably with the AI, so we can get that nuances also if we have fed those nuances earlier to the AI system. And furthermore, we can even combine GIS mapping with AI pattern recognition that allows us to visually overlay rejected tribal land claims with satellite imagery, immediately proving to authorities that these communities have historically coexisted with the forest, challenging the critical tribal habitat. Because those anomalies were also found; they were not actually into the their claimed lands, their claimed existence within the forest were not exactly within the critical tribal habitat. Even say if they are in the range, sometimes their rights were rejected. So probably if we had an the advantage of technology, so imposing the GIS imagery with the data, with where our people say they are lived, their ancestors have lived, they had the cultivation land there exactly. Then we can even show like, see, this is they are not in your area or they are in your area, but you have rejected or accepted their claims. That is an advantage today we have to do a better research, better evaluation, as well as better advocacy with the authorities. The next question is, can AI help bridge the gap between policy intent and ground reality? I feel it is, yes, because, but at the same time, it also risks making things worse. Like also empathetically, sometimes I can say yes, it is both risky as well as it has got its own advantages. If we train our AI models only on official administrative data, which we already proved is flawed and exclusionary in our case, as I explained, the AI will simply automate and scale the exclusion. It will predict the system is working perfectly. To bridge the gap, AI must be fed bottom up data. We must use AI to process the grievances, the rejected applications, and the ethnographic realities of the marginalized or excluded communities. AI bridges the gap when it is used to evaluate the bottlenecks of system like the poor interdepartmental coordination, etc., rather than being used to surveil or evaluate the beneficiary. That's something I would like to emphasize. And you might even ask, how do we use AI in tribal hamlets with low digital literacy and uniquely they have their own local dialects, etc.? The answer is what that we do not like hand over an AI app to the tribal elder and say that you use this app. We use a human in the loop, as probably you can also see in the schematic diagram, which I have developed using AI again, which shows how we can use the human, putting human in the forefront of the entire process. So human in the loop model, wherein the NGO or the research agency's enumerator or the field worker acts as an empathetic bridge. We are increasingly seeing the rise of localized large language models and voice to text AI regional languages like we have in Kannada. In fact, our own team members would agree with me from the compared to last year to this year, a lot of AI platforms are increasingly recognizing the vernacular and less errors are kind of found. So there are the regionalizing AI is also happening there are Indian-based or local country-based AI companies are also being found these days increasingly. So we have authentic expression through this, then voice to voice first AI, the translation metamorphosis, and the structured policy data can all be evolved if we use the bottom up and human in the loop model. And during the community need assessment also, we often do community need assessment studies. The facilitators can use voice first AI tools to record community narratives in the native language. The AI instantly translates, transcribes, and thematizes the spoken word into structured evaluation data. This ensures that the authentic voice of a marginalized person is carried directly to the policymaker's desk without being lost in manual translation. We all know we have started our career probably when we are only using the paper-based research tools, wherein we struggled a lot. We used all the blackboards to whiteboards to Excel spreadsheets to code, thematize all the transcriptions, etc. So it was many transition and translation losses used to occur, especially when the researcher is not from the native land. So this technology actually can bridge that particular lab, and the technology remains invisible in the whole process. If you look at the technology can remain invisible to the community. They don't know whether we are using paper-based method to technology to anything else. So they only see the human empathy in the forefront. And finally, this all good, but what must an M&D organization like Gram, like could be any other the doing policy research organization have in place before adopting AI? I would say you cannot just buy a software license, get a subscription, and then call yourself as an AI-driven organization or NGO. I think human capital first. We, especially when we all design and handle livelihood programs, we always say you need human capital before skill trade. So your evaluation team must possess deep contextual knowledge and critical thinking to integrate AI outputs, also blend with human intelligence, and on top of the AI intelligence. In fact, we should not allow AI intelligence to surpass or prevail over human intelligence, but human intelligence should prevail over the AI intelligence in the overall process. And when it comes to organization must also establish strict ethical frameworks when collecting data from vulnerables. I would say why vulnerable groups, all the groups for that matter. We must ensure data privacy, who owns this data, how is it is being used, and train models. Like recently, at least in our organization, we have decided identifiers should be eliminated before even feeding data to any platforms, how much ever safe it is, but we will take out identifiers and code it and then feed the data into the system so that the data remains anonymous actually. And redefining M&D. AI is not a magic wand that replaces the positive deviance model or participatory need assessment model. It is a tool that amplifies them. It enables us actually, it helps us to do it more efficiently. And you can look at this entire cyclical approach. So we need to, the node one is we need to ground truth extraction, bottom-up data emerges from the community narrative and historical land use, etc. In our case of FRS study. The human facilitator, evaluator provide contextual trust and capture the data using voice-first tools. So we don't even have to worry about, like earlier we are not a little discouraging or not so encouraging the qualitative methodology in research, thinking that it takes a lot of time. It requires a researcher to be on the ground. It requires a lot of abilities to process and analyze the data. We are always going for structured surveys. But today, with our technology, I feel we have a lot of flexibility and openness. We can go with open-ended questions, collect data, capture it, and then analyze it. So giving power to people, their language, their abilities as not the limitations. The surveyor or the researcher will not force fit their model onto the community. And of course, we can have the qualitative synthesis and systematic policy adjustments can also be made continuously. And so probably, did I exceed my time?
Yes, I think it would be better to end.
I think I'll make an end here. Yes, I can come back when you ask the questions, but I would say AI would especially make us time efficient, and qualitative data utilization can increase to many a times we used to leave many qualitative data because of it could be poor transcription, translation, etc. That problem can be solved, and cost to large scale surveys can also be minimized, and anomaly detection rate can also be increased in our analysis. And finally, I would say technology should never replace the empathy of a field worker. Instead, AI must be the bridge that scales their grassroots insight to the highest level of policy making. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Basavaraj. On that note, we would like to go to the next panelist. I would like to invite our second panelist, Ms. Avni Kapoor, who's the founder and director, ResGov, and senior visiting fellow, Center for Policy Research. Ms. Avni Kapoor will be speaking on the theme, Using AI for Social Sector Accountability, Evidence from Social Sector Evaluations. Over to you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ananya, and thank you, Gram, for inviting me. I'm going to speak from the perspective of someone who's done a lot of work on public finance and governance, including local governments and social sector accountability. And so my starting point is slightly cautious. I don't think that AI is currently replacing evaluation, especially for the social sector, and should not. But I do think it's beginning to change the ecosystem around evaluation. How we prepare, how do we synthesize the evidence, how do we interrogate assumptions, and how do we make complex public data more usable? So let me start with the problem that AI is being asked to solve. In many social sector programs, and Dr. Basavaraju also spoke about it, the issue is often not having data, but it's about having too much data. Dashboards, you have MIS portals, you have budget documents, you have survey data, field notes, government orders, guidelines, meeting minutes. But the data is often scattered and inconsistent and difficult to compare. And what one version of the truth that IS officer or a district officer sees versus what a citizen sees versus what a state department sees, there are differences across that. So when we speak about AI and evaluation, I think the first question should not be, can AI give us the answer? But can AI help us organize that confusion well enough for us humans to ask the questions better? At ResGov, what we've been trying to do is just that. We don't think of AI as a black box model. Tell us whether this program has worked or not. And I think that would be very dangerous, especially since evaluations to a large degree are also about context. They're about incentives. They're about judgment. A lot of it depends on implementation capacity and also power dynamics. And AI is not very good at understanding those on its own. But where AI has been useful for us, I would put this into roughly 3 buckets. The first is, of course, synthesis and sense making. And by that, what I mean is, how do you synthesize a literature quickly? Can you compare program guidelines across states? Can you simplify complex documents, which are often in different languages as well? Can you help generate the first cut of an interview probe? And most importantly, and that's why we use it a lot, is can you test whether our hypothesis is too narrow? I think most evaluations and most of us often suffer from some form of confirmation bias. So we start any evaluation with a theory of change, a set of indicators, something that where we have a strong feeling on what the hypothesis is or what we think the way the directions of the results are going to go. And AI can really help challenge our own assumptions. So it's important to use AI to question ourselves, not to validate what we already believe. It's almost like having like a second colleague who's critical. So someone you can brainstorm with to help us prepare better and ask better questions. The second area is public finance, which is something that we've been working on. And here I would say the use of AI is relatively weak. One of the biggest problems when it comes to public finance data is that data is extremely messy. Budget documents are designed as technical documents, often not designed in a way that are useful for ordinary citizens. Line items change names. Lot of schemes end up being merged and then get restructured. A lot of the PDFs are scanned documents. Expenditures reported differently across years, and sometimes the same scheme can appear in multiple departments and multiple budget heads. And in this context, while AI can help in the first level collation of extraction, translation, classification, what it can't really do is provide that kind of more technical judgment call. So to give you a concrete example, if you're tracking, say, spending on climate adaptation, there is no budget head for climate. If there was, AI could do a better job of collating that information. But climate adaptation can sit inside rural roads, it can sit inside irrigation, drinking water, health systems, disaster management, agriculture. And so it is up to the researcher and an evaluator to be able to actually know what are those heads that it should be looking at. Otherwise, a scheme like, especially like climate, you'll end up over classifying or getting things wrong, because if you're not using your own judgment and your own technical capacity. So I'd be quite cautious of AI generated public finance. I think there are ways, I've seen this myself, and I've tried to like kind of pass technical documents into AI and see what it throws up. And you can see that it's often misreading budget heads. It doesn't really fully understand the nuance between revised budgets and budget estimates, and it just treats numbers as numbers. But we do use it for reducing some of the drudgery. Instead of having to always do data entry, especially when the documents are scanned, can it give us a first cut into Excel? Can it help us translate documents that are in Kannada and other languages into something that is a little bit more easily accessible for even us to start that analysis process? The third area, I think, where there's a lot of promise is how do you make data more usable for frontline workers as well. And this is something that we've been working with. We've been working with the state government, for example, where we've been thinking about block level leadership. So the block is an interesting unit of government where it's close enough to implementation to understand the field realities, but it's also linked upwards to districts and states. But the challenge that block officers often face is that they have a lot of information, but don't have it in a form that is useful for decision making, and often don't have the time to sit and go through multiple Excel. So data often sits across departments, across schemes, and across formats. And while some of their job is to regularly update it, it ends up being compliance reporting. Not just, they don't have that kind of space to actually do it for local diagnosis. And that's where we feel like AI can really help, partly as an interface. So it can create that usable layer between administrative data and practical decisions. So that's one of the ways in which we've been using it, where we're trying to create a chatbot, so which can help a block team actually ask which villages are showing up repeated gaps across, say, health or livelihood. What are the areas where people are not getting their entitlements? Where are funds not being spent? Where is data look a little suspicious or incomplete? So imagine a panchayat officer or a block officer or even a civil society worker being able to ask questions in an ordinary language and getting that answers from data that already exists, rather than having to like kind of spend time collate it again. But again, I think it needs to be built carefully. AI is only good as good as the data, as everyone says. And so the data needs to be verified. It has to be in a privacy safeguards that Dr. Basavaraju spoke about are really, really important concerns. And there has to be a strong human element. Otherwise, you'll end up becoming another dashboard, which is impressive to look at, but not necessarily useful. And that's where I think it's important to also think about the risks. And that's something we are constantly asking ourselves. Often when we talk about evaluations, we often use this term that if designed well, this program could actually work really well. And I think that's really important when we talk about AI as well. like I said, social sector data is messy, but not messy just technically. It's also messy politically and administratively. And there are lots of these nuances in terms of incentives that come in. AI is good at analyzing data, but sometimes missing data, or what data doesn't exist also tells you a lot. So while AI can clean that spreadsheet, it can't tell me whether that spreadsheet is actually telling me the truth, or it also doesn't tell me who's getting missed out or left out in the process. Who is not being counted, which habitations are missing, which forms were not filled, which groups were least visible in an administrative system. I think it's really important to also look at that. And I fear that if you're using AI assisted evaluations too much without realizing this, we may make a visible population even more visible and an invisible population even more invisible. In the development sector, I think we kind of have a tendency to value speed, quick dashboards, rapid assessments, real-time monitoring. And that's where I think keeping this kind of invisible aspect in mind is really, really important. I also think that it's important to recognize, and something that we recently also thought about, is that there are ethical and environmental costs. While AI is becoming cheaper and cheaper, as the technology is expanding, the more technically sound AI models are quite costly, and many civil society organizations or local governments will not be able to afford the best tools. So whether it's ChatGPT or Claude, you can maybe get the free version, but as you get more advanced, they are expensive. So there is that risk that AI also deepens that.
Ma'am, you're not audible. Can you check it? Avni, ma'am?
Use of energy intensive AI systems actually contribute to higher emissions and heat. So that's something that we were thinking about recently. What are the material costs of producing that evidence? Who's paying for that cost? And are we using AI which is genuinely adding value, or simply because it's fashionable? And if it's the latter, I think it's really important, because there are strong environmental costs when it comes to data and AI use. So I think the responsible way broadly is threefold. One is, of course, you have to be transparent about it. You have to ensure that evaluators must say where AI is being used and where it's not. Second is, you have to verify AI outputs, and they have to be checked against human knowledge and judgment. There has to be a humility when you're using AI. So AI should be used to generate possibilities, but not to like decide the final truth. And then fourth is, of course, inclusion. Like I mentioned, whether it is about what AI is not telling us, the data that is missing, but also inclusion in terms of making sure that more and more people get access to it, which is becoming a little difficult when costs are high. So to summarize, I think if I was asked, can AI evaluate social programs? I'd say not really. But can AI help us make better, more grounded, more decisions, and ask more uncomfortable questions about social programs? Definitely yes. As long as we realize that the interpretation needs to take into account the local context and things that are often not visible in data or in AI. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Avni Kapoor. That was indeed a fascinating account from you. I would like to invite our next panelist. Our next panelist is Dr. Arushi Jain, Policy Director and Head, Government Affairs, ISP PIPP. Dr. Arushi Jain will be speaking on the theme, Reimagining Public Program Evaluation through AI, Readiness, Risks, and Governance Challenges. Yes, ma'am. Arushi Jain, ma'am, over to you, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Ananya, for the introduction, and thanks, Gram team, for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here, speaking on this very important aspect of AI readiness, the biases that exist, and the accountability. Because today data governance is a big issue in the country, and every government and state governments, including ministries, are looking at formulating their own governance frameworks. So with that, I will, begin by talking about the AI readiness, and I will take it just forward from where Avni left, and Avni has been kind of reiterating it again and again through the presentation, that AI is a tool that can be used very effectively to supplement what we are doing in our evaluations. However, we may not be ready to, at this stage, to automate evaluations to quite an extent. But if I compared our country's readiness in terms of how ready we are for AI evaluations, I would say we are much ahead of most of the countries across the world. And the foundations that have been laid out with our digital public infrastructure, with Aadhaar, with UPI, with all that we have been doing with DPI, I think, and with data portals that have come up, I think gives us a step ahead in this field. Also, there is increasing availability of administrative data today. Granular data is available. Data that is more inclusive and equitable in nature is available. So that are some of those positives that will help us in start thinking about the data ecosystem and the evaluations in the coming times. There is growing AI capability in the country, but still there is a long way to go when it comes to governments in particular. There is, even though readiness is there, but we have to understand that this readiness is very uneven. There are states that are, data rich, but have not been able to utilize data for public policy insights, for evidence-based policies. And there are also the other states where data systems are still taking shape. And there is not even a very robust open data ecosystem in some of these states. Another issue is of the governance of data, and states are now setting up their data governance authorities, data, state data authorities, and so on, to look at data governance aspects. Though a lot of it also flows from our DPDP recently, but yes, there is a long way to go there. So what AI can, already assist in, as Avni was mentioning, large volume of survey responses can be easily processed and analyzed. There could be a lot of, citizen grievance analysis, detecting anomalies, monitoring on real time, some kind of summaries and, evaluation summaries kind of can be generated. But the contextual understanding, the ground truth verification, the stakeholder engagement in evaluations, and also the judgment in terms of whether there is a causality or not. I think what is required right now is to understand that the human in the loop is the most important here, and we cannot rely 100% on on AI to take over these evaluations. So though digital public infrastructure is very robust, we still lack the interoperability of data at the administrative level. There are a lot of dashboards, a lot of portals that have come up, but still data is existing in silos when it comes to different ministries, when it comes to different departments across. And that is a huge gap when it comes to, availability of data for research. At ISB, we have been ourselves working on the data portal. We had launched the India Data Portal in 2020, and then have been continuously working on improvising the portal. But still, we ourselves feel that there is so much of gap in terms of availability of data, availability of granular data with APIs that can be integrated on any portal. So there is this way to go where researchers, evaluators, and academics can use data on a regular basis. Also, the capacity and capability of evaluators is something that needs to be taken care of in the era of AI. And so the readiness is there, but we have to understand that there are also the biases, and we have to look at the safeguards for these kind of biases on a regular basis. When it comes to biases, one of the major bias in our country is the digital exclusion bias. And this was brought out even by the Supreme Court. And this, I think this was during the COVID, when CoWIN platform was launched as the digital only access platform to register for vaccinations in the country. And, Supreme Court took suo motu cognizance of the exclusion part here, and people who do not have access to internet, how can they get the vaccination and so on? And then the whole system, parallel system was set into place. I think this is something that is very important, where we have to understand that we have the tribal belts of the country, we have the rural belts of the country, and we cannot just look at a digital infrastructure or digital, digital ecosystem of evaluation without understanding whether we are excluding some particular population or not. Another exclusion that has happened has also been with the Aadhaar biometric facial recognition integration with a lot of schemes. And there have been, for example, to give you one or two examples here, for example, the study on PDS in Jharkhand, or very recently, the take-home ration scheme in many states, including UP, millions of people were dropped out. The beneficiaries were dropped out of the system once the facial recognition technology was introduced, or the biometric linkage and Aadhaar linkage to mobiles was introduced before the take-home ration, could be taken by the beneficiaries. Now, whether this was these were people who were fake, or whether this is actually exclusion of the bottommost, of the hierarchy, is something that is still questionable and needs to be checked. So these biases have to be taken care of while we are, thinking about AI evaluations. I'll give another example of the facial recognition technology, and this study was done by MIT, wherein the study talked about similarity. And in terms of facial recognition, a white man had 100% accuracy in terms of identification, and a Black woman, the accuracy was just 20%. And that is because of the availability of data and the bias that the data can create at the back end. So underrepresentation of certain, certain communities, certain segments of the society will actually affect the entire AI model. And our researchers have to be very, very careful about this. In terms of biases, I would like to say there are 3 types of biases that we have to, think about. But more importantly, let's think about how to cover them in terms of audit or checks. So the first would be the coverage audit, wherein we can think about whether all segments of society in the data are represented or not, whether the tribal population, gender-wise data is available, are we excluding someone? All of that has to be done by the researchers or organizations who are looking at evaluation, but also using AI to do that. The second would be the measurement audits, wherein whether we are measuring everything equal for everyone, or is there some kind of a bias in that? So, for example, there have been these cases where, women, there were drives for women to report domestic violence, in some cities. And there were women who came out to report domestic violence, and the cases increased substantially. Now, is this good or bad? Yeah, that's the question. So we have to understand that, what we are measuring, how we are measuring, and the data has to be very accurately interpreted, because the media or anyone who's looking at the data can give it a very, very different shape. And the third is the model audit, wherein, as I said, the model that has been developed, whether it is free of bias, whether, the model is inclusive and equitable, and are we taking care of all the guardrails while developing some of these models. There are key tools that are available right now also to look at audits here. There are, for example, IBM has the AI Fairness, 360. There is a Microsoft similar tool that is available. There are also protocols that are available internationally, and some of the best practices protocols are available in countries like Canada, UK, and so on, which are, something that we can learn from and something we can gain from while we are looking at, the biases and audit in evaluations in our country at this point of time. When we think about audits and biases, another important aspect that comes to us is the accountability, is the architecture and policy, and who will be accountable if something goes wrong. And in India, after DPDP, we know that the data fiduciary, the organization who is actually responsible for collecting data, will be responsible. But that doesn't mean that all the others in the loop, whether it is the evaluators or the research partners, whether it's the technology vendors, or it is the frontline people, they are not responsible for the errors. Though there is some kind of governance structure placed there, we need to understand how this matrix will flow and how accountability can be taken care of at different levels here. As I was emphasizing earlier, the human in the loop is something that's very important. There are low-case uses. So when it comes to simple translations in vernacular, languages, when it comes to transcription, when it comes to coding, these are very low-risk uses. AI can be used very easily for all of that. Then there is the medium risk uses, wherein it could be scoring of something, it could be anomaly flagging, it could be something like this. Again, where AI is being used extensively at this point of time. And it may need a little bit of human review before any action is taken. And third, in terms of the high risk, situations. So for example, if the data is finally going to exclude someone, if the data is going to lead to some kind of investigations, I think AI has to be the advisory, but human in the loop have to do the ground truthing, the validation in order to solve some of these really important problems. When we look at data and how governments at this point of time are using data in different ways, there are a lot of best practices that I can talk about, but I'll give you one example. And this also links to the Forest Rights Act and the forest work that we do, Dr. Basavaraju, as you spoke about. So, I'll give you an example of the tribal communities in Pangi, which is in Himachal Pradesh. And, we were looking at forest value chains for these tribal communities. And there is a whole lot of hazelnut, high value crops like mushrooms, specialized mushrooms, like they're called as guchi in local language. So many of those kind of crops, apricots, walnuts, and so on and so forth. What we were trying to do was to look at not just kind of coming up with insights from the data that is available as historic data, but what we wanted to do was also to predict in some way what could be, the production in this year and how can we link industry directly to them. And then the use of satellite data, drone data, and along with the other historic data that is already available in terms of production actually helped us in layering a lot of that data and come to a number where we could actually predict what would be the production in this year and, easily connect the communities to the potential buyers directly without the middlemen there. So data and, talking about AI, I think there is a lot of role in terms of how we can think about predictive analytics, how we can think about evidence-based policy making. But yes, we have to ensure that the biases are taken care of. We have to ensure that the human in the loop is very cognizant of these biases, and we are able to take care of the issues that might arise because of these biases, so that we are not excluding the people who need it the most. And with that, I'm going to stop here, but of course, open to all the questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We will actually be taking the questions in a separate question round. Thank you so much. And I also request participants, members of the audience, please keep posting your questions in the chat box. We have 2 speakers to go, and after that, we should be taking questions, forwarding the questions to our esteemed speakers. So please do keep the questions coming in. It will make for a more vibrant discussion. Thank you. And I would like to invite our next panelist, Mr. Maulik Chauhan, founder and MD, Trestle Research and Consulting. Mr. Maulik Chauhan will be speaking on the theme, Practical AI Tools Across the Evaluation Cycle, What Works, What Doesn't, and Why. Over to you, sir.
I hope my screen is clearly visible, right? Okay, thanks.
It is, yes.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Happy to be a part of this panel. It is actually difficult after Avni and Dr. Arushi to have this conversation, because many of the things that I'll be talking will be overlapping, but yes, I will try my best. So as Ananya ji mentioned about that, I'll be talking on a slightly different subject compared to the previous speakers. I'll be more talking on where we are practically using AI tools, what is working, what is not working, and what are the reasons why we think that this is not working. So let me quickly move forward. So before I start talking about my slides, first of all, I would like to share that this whole presentation is not only about AI. It is about how it can help evaluators spend more time understanding people and less time fighting processes, right? For me, like, the real heroes are everyone like us, like the evaluators, researchers, government professionals, community workers, and AI's role is just like a supporting actor. Like, people are our real story. Before I would like to go forward, I would like to have something very on a lighter note. Like, we all work about with AI. Like, 3 myths that I have found about AI. Like, everyone thinks that they think like humans, but practically they are just predicting statistical patterns. It has no understanding, intuition, or empathy. Second myth is like AI is unbiased, but as we all know that it is just reflecting the training data, and mostly it is invisible. And the third myth is it is always telling the truth, but we all know that it can hallucinate facts confidently and convincingly. One example I would like to share here on my screen is like, if you see what is the common thing in all these pictures, mostly of you will agree that everyone is smiling, right? But actually, the fact is, these are all AI generated images. So sometimes we think, oh, this is the real thing, but the thing is different, right? So yeah, this was just on a lighter note. So let me go back on our previous days. Like, what was the old challenge? As Avni already mentioned that what was the previous problem and what is the problem that we are facing it now. So previously there was not enough data from the field, but now the problem is, as Avni mentioned, like, we have too much data. We are collecting huge tons of data, but the problem is, like, we are not making sense out of it. And when we are making sense out of it, it is taking too much time, and it's not that much accurate, and we need to build systems which are accurate at scale and very much quicker. So basically, the new bottleneck is how to handle so much data. Now, when we talk about AI, like, how it is adding value across the evaluation cycle. So this is the major components of any evaluation cycle. And mostly we can see that survey drafting, data cleaning, reporting, collection, analysis, this all can be done with the help of AI easily. But still, theory of change, indicator design, learning and interpretation, and communication, this is where, like, we still require the human intelligence. Without that, we cannot just move forward. Talking about data journey. So whenever we are talking about a mini data journey, like, these are again some of the important components, like question design, collect, analyze, decide, build, monitor, learn. So here also we can use AI across all the completely data journey. The good thing is it is becoming an intelligent layer across the entire ecosystem, and it is actually not replacing any of our stages, but making things work much more faster and much more reliable. Now, I would like to share some of our own use cases where we have started using AI to get high quality data from the field. So first use case I would like to share is like better questionnaires, better data. So previously when we were designing the questionnaires, no, we were designing it as per our own understanding, our own experience, right? Suppose a random example I have shown here is like, is drinking water available? This was the question that we were asking since years, right? Yes or no. But when we started using AI tools, we started reviewing through AI, and we finally found that the AI is suggesting that why you're asking only yes or no type of questions. Why it should be actually something like this, like, you know, how do households are accessing drinking water? Like, do they have the home connection or public tap, or they have to travel more than like 500 meters or 1 kilometer, or they have to pay for it. So now, actually, with the help of this AI tools, it is actually helping us for making more data driven questions as well. Previously, we found that many questions were very much vague. It was just yes, no. But now, with the help of AI, it is actually helping us move more refinements of our questions. Um, Second use case, so we primarily use Survey CTO for all of our data collection work. It's a digital data collection platform. So previously what was happening that, you know, if we wanted to create any automated workflows, if we want to integrate with WhatsApp or SMS or Google calendars, or if we wanted to create a very advanced workflow where, you know, the system itself reviews our workflow, it, honestly speaking, it was taking like months, weeks and months, because there was no one to reach out to. We had to hire some IT team members, some third party IT sourcing was done. But with the help of now AI tools, right now we are doing all this work in couple of minutes or hours, not waiting for like weeks and months. So the whole process has become so much efficient. It is like, you know, and the good thing is like, you know, with this advancement of workflows, it is actually giving us more time for learning, more time for going to the field, understanding what is happening right in the field. And like now the field teams do not have to wait. Like, you know, if we start getting all the feedback from day one itself. Another use case I would like to share is about audio recordings. So previously, what we were doing was we were having audio recording from the field surveys, and then we were checking the recordings and then checking the data. It's a very good thing we are getting recordings from the field, but at some time we realized that this also requires so much of our time, because imagine, like, you know, going through a 1 hour recording or 30 minutes recording, you can only do, as a human can only do 5 to 6 recordings in a day, right? So, and if we are roll out a big survey, we cannot wait for months or weeks to get the first insights. What we started doing was like, you know, we started providing all these audio insights, again removing the private confidential information, PI data. We started giving it to LLMs, and then it is actually now giving us summary on real time. So now, instead of waiting for such a long time, we are getting all the quality issues identified from directly day one. And we have also created chatbots, so we can even interact with the system, that know how it is going, like, which are the modes where we need to improve, right? Which are the enumerators which are not doing the work properly. So uh, uh, lots of our manual work got so much quickly resolved with the help of all these AI tools. Last use case I would like to share about DPDP Act. So or Dr. Ayushi already mentioned about the DPDP Act and its compliances. So we all know that no one is, at least in my understanding, in my network, no one is expert of DPDP Act, right? There are so many document one needs to refer. So for us also, when somebody was asking any question about DPDP Act, it was becoming so much difficult for us to answer. We created an LLM, and now we have uploaded all these government documents to that LLM, and now we are able to interact with any such request. No doubt, we always need to double check, but at least, like, no, we do not need to wait for days to reach out to some external consultants to give the advice. Sometimes you need some quick answers, and for that, like, these LLMs are really helping us a lot. So I just shared all this information. So we are using this AI since almost 1.5 years. So this is what we have learned, that that these are some of the places where it is not working properly for us. If some of the indicators is like some indicators that it is mentioning is like important but are not measurable. um, I am based out of Gujarat, so some of the indicators that it is mentioning, we cannot ask such questions in Gujarat, especially in the rural context. Those questions might be relevant with any other states, but some questions might not be relevant. So this looks very important aspect, but it is not helping us. Then wrong statistical recommendations, sometimes it is giving us that you should do this type of test, but practically that is not working. Sometimes it is saying that this is a positive correlation, but as an expert we think that, oh, this is a negative correlation. When we ask this question, in very next second it will say, oh sorry, it was a negative correlation. So sometimes this is really struggling us a lot. Plus as Avni mentioned, the cultural nuances are also we are also struggling with that, because it does not understand the context, like which is very much important, especially with the qualitative aspect. And very much important, garbage in and garbage out. Whatever strong AI platforms we are having, but if we are not having good data, like if the data that is collected from the field is not good, it's actually not helping us, right? So that these are some of the components where we are really struggling, where we have succeeded. So we have really succeeded if if the work is very much repetitive, it is very much structured. If we have to deal with high volume, suppose if you have to just have one recording, listening to one recording, it's a 20-minute recording, it's completely fine. But if we are dealing with high volume, then these are really successful. And yes, if we are having a good quality data, this is like amazing response that we can get. We are also struggling with if the problem statement is not clear, if you are not sure what exactly you want, if the context is not clear, or if the prompt is not proper, then we are also struggling a lot. These are few of my key takeaways, like few rules that we actually follow is like learn, unlearn, and relearn, right? It's a constantly, you have to evolve yourself. You have to know what is working, what is not working. Then also another thing that I would personally suggest is prompt first, ask later. I was just seeing the chat window and someone also asked about how to write a prompt, right? So we usually follow role, context, task, format, example, right? Usually what happens is we directly write in the GPTs, like that we need this and that. Instead of that, I personally think that one should first ask GPT to create a prompt, not directly write the prompt. First create a prompt. You can follow this RCTFE context and then go through that, and then again ask the GPT to give the results. Only then it will be very much successful. Plus also treat AI as baseline, not end line, right? We need human insights and should not be directly judged on the AI insights. Plus four eyes principle, so two eyes of AI and two eyes of human eye, very much important. And always keep human in the loop. Just last 1 minute. For the future evaluators, I would suggest you should definitely go with the human judgment. Context, empathy, and ethics are very much important. Do more critical thinking and ask any output that you are getting. Ask lots of questions to that. And yes, AI and data literacy will be very much important. Understand and when and how to use AI ethically. And yes, everyone's biggest question is like, AI is going to replace evaluators. No, it is not going to replace evaluators. But yes, I can definitely say evaluators using AI may replace those who don't know how to use AI. And yes, AI can be used for better evidence, better decisions, better lives. For evaluators, it can help in more time listening, less time on repetitive tasks. For communities, it can be like gives you evidence that truly reflect their requirements and realities. And for decision makers, it can be like more faster, higher quality insights to act on with confidence. This is just an excerpt. These are some of the tools that we used across different platforms. Not necessarily use this, but I thought let me share it with you. So that was a quick slide deck on how we are using AI in our day-to-day use in our evaluations. And yeah, thank you so much for having me here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, Mr. Malik Chauhan. We shall move to our last speaker for today, Dr. Samudra Sen, Assistant Professor, RV University. Dr. Samudra Sen will be speaking on the theme AI tools for monitoring and evaluation, scope, potential, and limitation. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you very much. Respected Dr. Basavaraju, the GRAM team, thank you very much for organizing this excellent webinar and inviting me as a panelist here. Fellow panelists and dear audience. I'll be talking on the scope, potential, and limitations, but I take a very different approach because the learned panelists have spoken so much about AI, technical things, and have brought out excellent insights about the use of AI in the social sector. So I would be talking on a perspective of from the perspective of public policy students and the layman. So I'll be more talking in very simple terms. So I'll keep it short and simple. So we have all heard of these terms of late, that is generative AI, natural language processing, LLM, and so on and so forth. The first three, we hear it on a day-to-day basis might be. The next three, we don't hear so much. But then we should all realize that even before we hear all this, we have been using AI actively. So if you look at the what we have been doing over the years, you will see that ChatGPT, Siri, Google Assistant, Copilot, Gemini, Alexa, we have been using some of these at least, right? And these are also AI tools, but these are designed to use by the common person and for general purpose, right? Not any specific purpose. So for the common man, these are some of the tools. Next slide, please. Yeah. But when we talk about the social sector, we have some very specific tools for the social sector, specific AI tools for the social sector. So if you look at the fourth one, that is Microsoft Purview and IBM Watson. So Microsoft Purview, as the name suggests, it's made by Microsoft and it seamlessly connects with Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Office suites. So as we use the, say, Microsoft Excel, and then there is a Copilot within Excel. So if I want to know something, if I do not know some function, I want to ask, I don't have to get out of Microsoft Excel and say that, okay, let me ask Gemini or Copilot, what is the function or how should I do this? So Microsoft has provided this functionality in the latest versions of Excel, that within Excel I can ask that what do I do? I want to do this. Exactly how do I approach? Similarly here also, when someone uses Microsoft Purview, Microsoft Office, Word, I mean all the suites in the Office, Microsoft 365, it becomes so easy to use Microsoft to convert from one to the other. So from Microsoft Purview to Microsoft Office suite and vice versa, right? When we talk about IBM Watson is an end-to-end analytics solution. So it is it's heavily driven by the AI engines. So what happens is, even before someone knows how to use IBM Watson, it will give some prompts as to what you want to do. Or even just after loading the data set, it will give some basic insights. So it becomes so easy. Before you can ask questions, there are some answers already there. So it becomes so easy for persons to do things. And the best part is that I want to do some kind of analysis, but I don't know how to code. I don't know what do I look at, but I know that fine, let me go deep into this. So when one answer comes in that, okay, this is what it is, I can say that, suppose that how are males doing? How are females doing? or how are the elderly doing, like that. So I can just ask in a layman's terms, and IBM Watson will give me some results based on that. And so it becomes very, very human interface kind of thing, right? So as if I am asking a consultant, as if I am asking someone who is knowledgeable in coding, in AI, in data analytics, and I am getting the results. So it becomes so easy. And because these tools are specifically for the governance modules, for the governance, for compliance, for monitoring, evaluation, and for assessments. So there have been some of the new terms which have come up. So for example, we have all heard about fintech, right? So there are companies which are working on fintech. Now, there are some organizations which are working on GovTech. GovTech means government and technology. So GovTech. And there are robo-advisors. I'll give some examples of this to make it very easy to understand. And then there is, for the civil society, for the social sector, there is something called civic tech, right? So it has, the AI and these tools have become so, widely used that these new terms are coming up every now and then. And then there is another term, algorithmic government. So the government, most of the repetitive tasks, the monotonous tasks are being taken up by the AI tools. And I mean, there are less people focusing on the analysis part, more people focusing on the implementation and the overseeing the part, right? So algorithmic government, e-government, or we also heard about this digital government, right? So these are some of the terms which are associated with the government, the compliance sector, the compliance of the rules and regulations, the social sector, and so on. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so why do we use AI? So since all this till suppose 20 or 30 years earlier, there was nothing called AI, right? But now AI is like, it has taken over our lives. Why is this? That's because of speed. So AI can do work in a flash. I mean, before we can think, the result is there or the output is there. So it's speed, cost effectiveness, really, really cost effective. But yes, if we are looking at very cutting edge technology or very customized things, then it becomes really expensive, as Avni ma'am had put in, that maybe many of the organizations would not be able to afford some of the tools there. AI can read the fine print. So if there is lot of data, or if there is data which the human beings cannot read, it's very small or invisible, or by mistake it has become into, say, written something in white ink, then the human beings can't read, but yes, AI can read it. Scalability, we can scale it. So whether the data set is small or data set is large, doesn't matter. It hardly, there is any difference between how much time the AI engine takes to read it, analyze it, and to generate insights out of that. So AI is very efficient. It is 24/7 available, always available. There is no monotonicity for the AI. It's just a machine, and it works very consistently. Next, please. Okay, so having all these facilities or all these qualities of AI, now whatever we do, we see that our experience have become so much different than when only human beings, however experienced they might be, however fast they might be, however knowledgeable or skilled they might be, they can't meet what AI can do. So our experience is very transformative, and it is not retrospective, it is on real time. So if we are getting some data, and it's huge quantities of data, then what is happening is that data, it's coming in, and at the same time it's not sequential, that it will stop coming in and then the analysis will be done, not like that. So it is coming in, and at the same time the real-time analysis can be done. So it's just like a production assembly line. So one input is coming in, another input is going out, and so on, right? And it is proactive. So the interventions may not be very, it doesn't have to be reactive, that, okay, something has happened, now let's start the firefighting kind of thing. No, it's not like that. So it has to be proactive. So because there is predictive analytics also involved here, so we already know before something happens that, okay, something is going to happen. So long-term, short-term outcomes can be predicted, and then proactively such things can be planned for, or the intervention can be planned for, and scalable impact, right? So the it costs very little to scale from small to large, from one geography to another geography, and so on. And I'll give some real examples on this. So in Singapore, there is something called SingPass. So for Singapore citizens, the SingPass is an AI thing which stores and retrieves and also gets insight from health records of the citizens, right? So even before something happens, the model would most probably come to know that someone needs some intervention, and then some preventive measures can be taken, right? And then if you would have heard of this Annapurna Yojana in West Bengal only a few days ago, just after the elections, people have been told to fill up a form of 12 pages. Now that's very time consuming. There can be mistakes and it's very monotonous and so on, right? So UK has something called e-capture or web capture, which makes filling up forms very easy, so that people don't have to search for things and enter the data themselves. So this you can understand in a way that when we use Amazon Pay or when we use Flipkart app, then what happens is, when you want to pay using your debit card or credit card, you just scan the card and all the details are automatically captured. So one does not need to manually put in the debit card or the credit card details, right? So the possibility of having errors is minimized. Similarly, in UK, the same thing is done using e-capture and web capture. In China, there is some legal robots are there. They suggest, they do not decide, but they suggest on sentencing. They suggest lawyers and judges on the legal documents, how good or bad they are, if there are any discrepancies or not. So that's used in China. In Indonesia, there are certain regions where forest fires are predominantly a source of danger for the local community. So there is something called Haze Gazer, which is an AI-enabled model which looks at forest fires, and it takes preventive measures, and a warning system is associated with it, so that there is no loss of life or any maybe liberty, right? And the national complaint system for the citizens there in Indonesia is known as Lapor. So rather than some human beings or a department going through thousands of documents as complaints, the AI flags those critical components, critical complaints which need immediate intervention, right? So it has become so easy for the government, for the social sector to use and respond to the dangers or to the issues which need immediate interventions, right? Using AI. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so when we have talked about all these merits of having AI, how AI can make work and task very easy, the potential of AI is like unlimited kind of. So using advanced processing and synthesis, AI can analyze unstructured data. So not only forms and structured data, but also like it can be video, it can be audio, it can be anything. It can be handwritten documents, anything. So AI can analyze that. And also, as Avni ma'am put it through, that in India or in many places, data integration is a big issue. So when data integration is a big issue, data actually lies in silos. So maybe the health department is getting data and it is not sharing with anyone. The education department is getting data, not sharing with anyone. And there is no link and there is no, insights which could have come out of linking these data does not come out. But AI can do it seamlessly, given only maybe the primary key or something like that, that can be done. So multi-source integration of data can be made easy with AI. Predictive analytics and risk mitigation, forecasting long-term outcomes, as I said, becomes easy with AI, with predictive analytics. And proactive interventions can be taken on the basis of the predictive analytics. Enhanced efficiency and real-time course correction can be done because AI is available 24/7 and continuous monitoring is possible. Automate the routine tasks can be automated so that it becomes very easy and nobody needs to actually look at the routine tasks or do those routine tasks. And it's a cost-effective scaling as well. And above all, objective social metrics quantifying. So when we talk about the social sector, the social return on investment needs to be checked, needs to be calculated, and this can be done on a real-time basis so that corrective actions can be taken.
Dr. Samudra Sen, sir, can you wrap it up in the next 1 minute, please? We have overshot time.
Sure. So social ROI is something that AI can track on a real-time basis. And as Avni ma'am said, that there is something called like contextuality, right? So the advanced models of AI, that is the advanced explainable AI, XAI, which is known as, so it can also take up fairness calibration, right? So that the distinction between maybe two sets of data can be minimized and they can be fairly evaluated. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, there are some limitations like ethical, legal limitations are there. Transparency is a big issue. And there are also problems of privacy, security, and people might also feel that they are being put on surveillance, right? And there is one big issue of hallucination. So AI also makes up something that does not exist. Then there is training bias. So all AI models are trained on some or the other kinds of data, but then when it comes to test data, it might not give the best results because test data might be very different from the training data. And as I said, it is mostly context blind unless and until it is trained to look at that, and there is some kind of fairness calibration. And then there are some nuances. We are all human beings, we are all unique, and then there are some nuances which might be difficult for AI to understand, and based on that AI might give wrong results. Next, and that's the reason that when we use ChatGPT, it is said that it's written in the fine print that ChatGPT can make mistakes, check important info. This is very important, and we need human intervention and human supervision on top of the AI model. So it's like human in the loop approach, as Dr. Basavaraju said, that without that, it's a very dangerous way to look at or use AI and then jump into some conclusions. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I'll stop here.
Thank you so much, Mr. Samudra Sen. We actually have very little time for questions. So what I can do is I can just select a few questions and then I can just forward it to the respective speakers. So one question which is there, any of you can actually answer. Actually, I would just like to start with Dr. Basavaraju, if that's okay. There's a question on validation of AI analysis. And people have also asked about the safeguards that can be used to detect the automation biases. Yes, Dr. Basavaraj, over to you.
Yeah, very quickly. I think I've answered some of those questions on the chat box itself. But one classical thing everyone says is using AI, another AI to validate. That is one way, quick way to do it, but don't rely on it fully. At least in our organization, being a grassroots organization, we always want a community consult. We keep a community consultation team. Another thing is, so we have a researchers expecting, no, researchers expected to go to the field and at least participate in certain percentages of the research data collection activities, or etc. So they are the very good validators. So whatever the data collected, so whatever probably data we are analyzed, so that will be read through. It is not that we'll simply take it on its face value. It will be read through and completely by both researchers as well as, like, there will be some human interface to validation processes. And second thing is, as I said, so to find out anomalies and other things, but you can also leverage other AIs to do it. That's one quick thing.
Thank you, sir. I would like to forward one of the questions to Mr. Maulik Chauhan. This has been a question, I think you also referred to it. The question about the model set of prompts for evaluation. And I would just actually like to add, Mr. Maulik, sir, that what can the international evaluation kind of community do about this? You know, what can they do to help develop a set of, a model set of prompts?
See, I have undergone couple of such AI trainings, and there are like n number of prompts that everyone is using, following internationally. So again, I think that there is not a standard particular prompt, right? Because I know at least 20 different prompts, right? The formats, like the one I follow is like RTCFE, but there are at least 20 such prompts. So there is no standard, and like this is a very evolving stage, right? Now everyone is learning, everyone is knowing actually what is working, what is not working, right? RTCFE is actually the one which is mostly the researchers are using, and that is why we are following. So means right now there is no such standard practice. It will come eventually, maybe in the next couple of months. But yes, if you can also follow RTCFE prompts, and if you think that this is giving you more value addition, and this is something that can be standardized, then yes, that can really help.
Can I supplement here?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Okay, thank you. So yes, as Maulik was mentioning, there are different frameworks that can be used. One that we use in our system is called as TICCO, which is task, instruction. So task. So what must be done, and to whom is it targeted to, or what is the task? Then there are instructions. Instructions cover how do you want the AI to do it. So detailed instructions of what is required here. Then there's the context. So the context is the what, when, why, how of the task. So all of that context has to be given very clearly. And then is the constraints. So the constraints may be if you're coming up with a paper or something and you need a length, you need references in a particular format, so on and so forth. That is exactly what do you need. And it can even be budget, because that is an important constraint at times. Then the last is output. So how do you want it to be structured? What kind of a final output you're looking at? So it's called as TICCO. Which we generally use. So that is another way of doing it. And as Maulik had very, very clearly indicated earlier, you can give the frame. So you can try first by yourself and kind of ensure that nothing is missing there. Give detailed instructions to the AI, give a format, and then ask the AI to kind of refine the prompt for you. That will help you in getting the best possible prompt.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Actually, the next question, I would like to forward it to you, please, Arushi ma'am. Yes. So this question is something, because there was a mention of causality, the causal attribution, which is so important in evaluation. So there's a question that AI is increasingly being used for data analysis and pattern detection, but evaluation requires establishing causality. So how do you see AI complementing traditional evaluation methods without compromising methodological rigor?
Yes, thank you, Ananya. Actually, I had answered this question briefly on the chat itself. So, of course, the traditional evaluation methods establish causality. You have the RCTs, you have DIDs, you have the mixed method evaluations. All of that is really important. And what AI should be used for is, a very powerful supplement to what you're trying to do. So if you can start thinking about different, ways in which you can integrate AI to what you're trying to do. So if you have designed a DID, for example, and if you can look at different ways, whether it's initially some data analysis for sampling, whether it is your qualitative interviews that you are recording, there are AI tools that even we have developed or are available online, where all the recordings can be in the local language. And we used it in some of the panchayats in Odisha, where the deliberations were in Odia, and it was very difficult for research team coming from outside to actually understand a lot of that context. So the AI tool could easily interpret it in English and then give us a summary, give us some insights of what was being discussed. And then that needs to be validated again with the human in the loop. You cannot rely on that translation 100% and say, okay, this is what finally it looks like. It may not be the true, in the right shape. So understanding that context and then validating it with some more discussions will help. So there could be this supplementary, thing that AI can help you with, and in different steps it can be done.
Thank you so much. My last question is for Ma'am Avni Kapoor. This actually, I think, captures really the essence of the discussion today. So the question is, of course, that, as AI is becoming increasingly capable of analyzing data and generating insights, what will remain uniquely human in evaluation practice over the next 5 to 10 years? And how should M&E professionals prepare for that shift?
I think, one word, I think empathy. There's been a lot of documentation that technology doesn't have empathy. And that's a big problem as well. And so I do think that, like I said, there are all these aspects which AI can never capture, because AI can only capture things that are visible. So when you're evaluating programs, whether it is incentives, whether it is power dynamics, whether it is something that someone may not actually say, but you can see from body language, a lot of those things that are often invisible to tech are very visible to humans. And that's where empathy becomes an important aspect, which I don't think. So as I think Maulik said this, that I don't think anyone who's worrying that AI is going to completely take over human. I don't think that's true. I do think that it is about how do you use AI more effectively. And I think anyone who's forgotten that aspect will probably get left behind. But yeah, I think that there is an empathy aspect of it which only humans can actually do.
Thank you so much. And just my last question for Dr. Samudra Sen. So this is actually, sir, the question on capacity building. So what would be the measures, the capacity building measures that you would suggest to address the AI divide, especially at the grassroots level? You can give suggestions for addressing the capacity gaps at the different levels, including the decision makers, the stakeholders at the grassroots, researchers. Your suggestions, Dr. Samudra Sen.
Yeah. Madam, given that AI can, do almost everything that humans can do, that seems to be on the superficial level. That's also a very big danger, because human beings tend to get into a comfort zone, right? So if I need 1 hour of time and AI can do it in 1 minute, why should I spend that 1 hour, or even while checking? So I take it as that, okay, I got a result, it must be right, kind of a thing. So capacity building is that the team has to be trained on using AI. And as many of the panelists said, that prompt engineering is very, very important, which is a very big thing now, because it all depends what prompts I give, and depending on my prompt, the insights will be generated. If my prompt is not good enough, then the principle of garbage in, garbage out is there, right? So the prompt needs to be good, and without that, it's all, I mean, like we are giving an AK-47 to a monkey kind of a thing. So capacity building is that start with small projects and then invest heavily in training the team to question AI outputs, to look everything with a pinch of salt, check things whether they are right or not. Maybe randomly we can check things, because it might not be possible for a human being to check everything that has been output by the AI, but yes, randomly picking out the inputs and then checking things. And scaling up is okay, but then the human overseeing must be there. So everyone, from someone who is collecting the data, or even before that, someone who is making the questionnaire, must be aware of the ground reality of the contextual things, because AI, as we all discussed, that AI is context blind. So people must be trained on that. And then at each and every step of the data collection, data analysis, cleaning, whatever it is, the human intervention is very, very necessary.
Thank you so much, sir. And my heartfelt and sincere thanks to all the speakers today who have shared such valuable insights. And it is my pleasure to just summarize some of the important takeaways which have come just very briefly. So today's discussion has really, thrown up the importance that while AI use is increasing and it has demonstrated tremendous potentialities, the role of the judgment of the human evaluator and the human researcher remains. The role of contextual knowledge of the human researcher is something that AI really cannot bring in. And of course, the role of strict ethical frameworks and strict ethical safeguards remain. For example, the masking the identifiers when we're uploading data in the AI solutions. But we've also seen the potentialities of AI, for making evidence more accessible for decision makers. There was a very nice example shared by Avni ma'am about about the decision makers being able to use a chat box that can help to make data more accessible for decision makers. Of course, the importance of validation and verification, transparency. I think researchers must maintain utmost transparency in where they are using AI, and that verification against human judgment must remain. Inclusion issues were highlighted, in fact, by more than one of our speakers today in terms of what the data is missing, and also in terms of inclusion issues of AI access, that, that is something also that needs to be addressed. And when it comes to the use of data and evaluation, with the use of AI, in evaluation, the researcher must be cognizant that there are, those areas of low risk, some of the tasks like, coding, transcription, which may be the low risk tasks, but there are also the medium risks and the medium risk tasks and the high risk tasks. So when it comes to the high risk tasks, it's especially important, to have that kind of ground truthing by the human evaluator, by the human researcher. That is very important. Of course, our talk today has highlighted the importance of capacity building for AI and the need to be cognizant of the biases in AI. There are elements in the entire M&E cycle where I think the role of the human evaluator remains very critical. Example, formulation of theory of change or the evaluation framework of indicators. The human researcher's role remains quite important there. And of course, when it comes to AI, the rules have been stated. One needs to learn, unlearn, relearn. Of course, prompting quality is important. AI output is the starting point. We can't just get something on AI and use that as a final product. And of course, we need to develop the data literacy and the AI literacy. So there was a very interesting quotation today, actually, by Mr. Maulik Chauhan, that AI will not replace evaluators. But evaluators who are using AI are likely to replace evaluators who are not using AI because of the efficiency gains that AI brings in. And of course, our speakers today have highlighted that, we need to be cognizant of the training biases in AI. And AI also sometimes may be unable to detect the nuances like language, body language, gesture, etc. in the data. So all this, and I think it was very nicely summed up by Ma'am Apni Kapoor, who said that, the empathy is that uniquely human element that will continue to remain. So going ahead, I think the international evaluation community also has plenty to deliberate to make the use of AI in evaluations more effective and more transparent and more ethical. So on that note, I would like to thank you all for attending this session. And my special thanks to all the speakers who have enlightened us with their wonderful insights. A good day to everybody who has joined. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks to all
Thank
the
you.
esteemed panelists. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.